The dirty EGR valve mistakes that could cost you thousands. Have you ever noticed your engine feeling weaker than it used to? Maybe your fuel economy suddenly dropped for no obvious reason. Your car hesitates when you accelerate. The idle feels rough. Then, without warning, the check engine light appears. You take the car to a repair shop, and within minutes, you're told the EGR valve needs to be replaced. The estimate? $300, $500, sometimes even more. But here's the question almost nobody asks. What if the valve isn't actually broken? What if years of carbon buildup have simply prevented it from doing its job? The truth is, thousands of EGR valves are replaced every year when all they really needed was a proper cleaning and a correct diagnosis. Unfortunately, that's where most people make another expensive mistake. They grab the first spray cleaner they find, scrub the valve with a wire brush, reinstall it, and hope for the best. A few days later, the rough idle comes back, the check engine light returns, and now the valve may actually be damaged. Today, you'll learn how experienced technicians approach EGR maintenance, the mistakes that shorten the life of the valve, and the methods that can restore performance while helping you avoid unnecessary repairs. But make sure you stay until the end, because one everyday driving habit, something millions of people do without thinking, is one of the biggest reasons EGR valves clog prematurely. Let's begin. What does the EGR valve actually do? Before talking about cleaning, it's important to understand why this small component matters so much. EGR stands for exhaust gas recirculation. Its purpose isn't to increase horsepower. It isn't there to improve acceleration. Instead, its job is to reduce combustion temperatures by sending a controlled amount of exhaust gas back into the engine. Lower combustion temperatures mean fewer nitrogen oxide emissions, one of the most harmful pollutants produced by gasoline and diesel engines. Modern engine computers constantly adjust the EGR valve depending on engine load, speed, and temperature. When everything works correctly, the system operates silently in the background. Most drivers never even know it exists. But once carbon begins accumulating inside the valve, everything changes. The valve may stick closed. It may remain partially open, or it may move too slowly for the engine computer to control accurately. That's when drivability problems begin. The warning signs most drivers ignore. Carbon buildup happens gradually. That's why many owners don't notice the symptoms until they're already severe. One of the first signs is a rough idle. Instead of running smoothly, the engine vibrates slightly while stopped at a traffic light. Next comes sluggish acceleration. The car still moves, but it doesn't feel as responsive as it once did. Fuel consumption often increases because the engine management system struggles to compensate for incorrect exhaust gas flow. Some drivers notice intermittent hesitation during acceleration. Others experience reduced power while climbing hills or merging onto highways. On diesel engines, excessive black smoke may also appear. Eventually, the engine computer detects abnormal EGR operation and stores a fault code. At that point, the check engine light turns on. Unfortunately, many people immediately assume the valve has failed, but that's not always true. A dirty valve and a defective valve can produce almost identical symptoms. Understanding the difference can save hundreds of dollars. Mistake number 1, replacing parts before confirming the cause. One of the most common mistakes isn't made in the garage. It's made before the hood is even opened. Many people scan the fault codes, see an EGR-related code, and immediately order a replacement valve. But fault codes don't tell you which component failed. They simply indicate that the engine computer detected abnormal operation within that system. The actual cause could be carbon buildup. It could be restricted passages, a damaged vacuum hose, a faulty temperature sensor, an electrical connector, or even another engine problem affecting EGR performance. Professional technicians never replace expensive parts based solely on one code. They inspect, they test, they verify. That extra diagnosis often saves both time and money. Mistake number 2, choosing the wrong cleaner. Once people decide to clean the valve, another mistake happens almost immediately. They assume every cleaning product is basically the same. Brake cleaner, carburetor cleaner, engine degreaser, throttle body cleaner. Many of these products contain aggressive solvents designed for completely different applications. Modern EGR valves often include delicate seals, electronic sensors, plastic housings, and precision machined surfaces. Strong chemicals may remove carbon quickly. Unfortunately, they can also damage the valve itself. Instead, always use a cleaner specifically formulated for EGR systems or intake components, and verify that it's safe for electronic sensors and rubber seals. Paying a few extra dollars for the correct product is far less expensive than replacing the entire valve. Carbon doesn't build up overnight. Here's something many people don't realize. Carbon buildup isn't simply the result of poor maintenance, it's often caused by the way the vehicle's driven. If most of your trips last only 5 or 10 minutes, if your engine rarely reaches full operating temperature, if your daily driving consists mainly of stop-and-go city traffic, you're creating the perfect environment for carbon deposits. Incomplete combustion produces soot. Moisture combines with those particles. Heat gradually bakes everything into hard carbon, layer after layer, month after month. Eventually, the valve begins sticking. Ironically, some of the cleanest-looking cars develop the dirtiest EGR systems simply because they're never driven long enough to fully warm up. And that's exactly why professional technicians don't focus only on cleaning. They also look at driving habits, because preventing carbon buildup is always easier than removing it. Now here's where most DIY repairs go completely wrong. Many people finally remove the valve, only to damage it during the cleaning process without even realizing it.
The tools they use, the amount of force they apply, even how long they let the cleaner soak can determine whether the repair lasts for years or fails before the next tank of fuel.
So now you know why EGR valves become clogged and why replacing them isn't always the answer. But here's the reality. Most EGR valves aren't damaged during years of driving. They're damaged during the cleaning process itself. Every week, DIY mechanics unknowingly ruin perfectly repairable valves because they rush the job, use the wrong tools, or skip one critical step. Let's make sure that doesn't happen to you. Mistake number 3, using force instead of letting chemistry do the work. Imagine trying to remove dried concrete with your bare hands. That's essentially what many people do when they attack carbon deposits with excessive force. The moment they see thick black buildup, they grab a screwdriver, a wire brush, sandpaper, or even a metal scraper. It may seem effective at first. The carbon comes off, the metal looks shiny again. But what most people don't realize is that modern EGR valves are precision components. The sealing surfaces are machined to extremely tight tolerances.
Even tiny scratches can prevent the valve from sealing completely. When that happens, exhaust gases continue flowing when they shouldn't. The result? Poor idle quality, reduced fuel economy, higher emissions, and another check engine light. Instead of forcing the carbon off, let the cleaner do most of the work. Spray the affected areas generously. Allow the cleaner to penetrate the deposits for at least 15 to 20 minutes. For heavily clogged valves, repeat the soaking process several times. Patience almost always produces better results than brute force. Mistake number 4, cleaning only what you can see. Here's something many first-time DIY mechanics never consider. The valve itself is only part of the EGR system. Even if the valve looks spotless after cleaning, carbon may still be blocking the passages inside the intake manifold. Think of it like cleaning only the faucet while leaving the pipes completely clogged. The restriction remains.
Airflow stays compromised, and the same symptoms return shortly afterward. Whenever the valve is removed, inspect the connecting passages as well. If carbon buildup is present, carefully clean those areas using the proper brushes and approved cleaning products. Removing deposits from the entire airflow path, not just the valve, dramatically increases the chances of a successful repair. Professional technicians understand that restoring airflow is the real goal, not simply making one component look clean. Mistake number 5, flooding electronic components. Modern EGR valves are far more advanced than older mechanical designs. Many now include electronic position sensors and small electric motors that constantly communicate with the engine control module. These components are not designed to be soaked in cleaning chemicals. Unfortunately, many people spray cleaner everywhere without paying attention to where it's going. Liquid can seep into electrical connectors or sensor housings. Even if the valve works immediately afterward, corrosion may begin developing inside the electronics. Weeks later, the sensor starts sending inaccurate signals. The engine computer interprets those incorrect readings as a faulty EGR valve, and once again, the warning light returns. When applying cleaner, focus only on the carbon-contaminated areas. Avoid electrical connectors, wiring harnesses, and sensor housings whenever possible. A little extra care now can prevent a very expensive replacement later. Mistake number 6, rushing the soaking process. This is one of the biggest reasons DIY cleanings fail. People spray the cleaner, wait 2 or 3 minutes, wipe the surface, then assume the job is finished. The problem is that carbon inside an EGR valve isn't soft dirt. It's been exposed to thousands of heat cycles. Over time, it becomes almost rock hard. Chemical cleaners need time to penetrate those deposits. If you wipe everything away too soon, you'll only remove the outer layer. Deep inside the passages, hardened carbon remains untouched.
The valve may seem cleaner, but internally it's still restricting liquid. Professional technicians often repeat the soaking process several times instead of trying to remove everything at once. Allow the cleaner to work. Reapply if necessary, then remove the loosened deposits gently. Taking an extra 20 minutes during cleaning can add years to the life of the valve. Mistake number 7, ignoring the carbon's condition. Not all carbon deposits are the same. Fresh carbon is usually dark, soft, and slightly oily. It dissolves relatively easily. Older deposits tell a different story. They're dry, gray, almost ceramic-like, extremely hard. Trying to clean hardened carbon using the same approach as fresh buildup almost always leads to frustration. Instead, inspect the deposits before you begin. Soft carbon usually responds well to one cleaning cycle. Heavy, baked-on deposits may require several rounds of soaking and gentle brushing. Understanding what you're dealing with before you start makes the entire process faster, safer, and much more effective.
Mistake number 8, forgetting to inspect the valve movement. A clean valve isn't automatically a working valve. Before reinstalling the component, check whether the valve moves smoothly throughout its full operating range. Mechanical valves should move freely without sticking. Electronic valves should respond normally when tested with the appropriate diagnostic equipment. If movement feels rough, if the valve sticks halfway, or if the position sensor reports incorrect values, cleaning alone won't solve the problem. The valve may have internal wear or electronic failure. Recognizing that before reinstalling everything saves hours of unnecessary work later. At this point, your EGR valve may be cleaner than it has been in years. But one final mistake still catches countless people by surprise. Even after a perfect cleaning, even after following every step correctly, the carbon sometimes comes back far sooner than expected. Why? Because the real problem was never the dirt itself. It was what caused the buildup in the first place. By now, you've learned how to recognize the symptoms of a clogged EGR valve and how to clean it without causing expensive damage. But here's something that surprises even experienced DIY mechanics. A perfectly cleaned EGR valve can become clogged again in just a few months if the real cause of the buildup isn't addressed. Cleaning removes the symptoms. Prevention eliminates the problem. That's the difference between constantly repairing your car and keeping it reliable for years. Let's look at what actually causes carbon to return and how professionals keep it under control. Mistake number 9, ignoring the root cause of carbon buildup. Carbon doesn't appear by accident. It's the result of incomplete combustion, soot particles, oil vapors, and the normal operation of the exhaust gas recirculation system. However, some engines accumulate deposits much faster than others. Why? Because another problem is often feeding the contamination. A worn PCV valve can allow excessive oil vapor into the intake. Leaking turbo seals on turbocharged engines may introduce additional oil. Poor quality fuel can increase carbon production. Restricted air filters reduce combustion efficiency. Faulty fuel injectors can create an overly rich air-fuel mixture. Even neglected engine oil changes contribute to heavier deposits over time. If you clean the EGR valve but ignore these underlying issues, you're only resetting the clock. The carbon will come back. Professional technicians always ask one important question before finishing the repair. What caused this valve to become dirty so quickly? That's the question every car owner should ask as well. Mistake number 10, cleaning a valve that should actually be replaced. Cleaning is incredibly effective, but only when the valve is still mechanically healthy. Unfortunately, carbon isn't always the only problem. Years of heat, vibration, and constant movement eventually wear internal components. Electronic motors can fail, position sensors lose accuracy. Valve shafts develop excessive play, springs weaken, sealing surfaces become damaged. No amount of cleaner can repair mechanical wear. So how do you know when replacement is the better option? If the valve remains stuck after repeated cleaning, if diagnostic data shows incorrect position readings, if the actuator fails to respond during testing, or if visible damage is present inside the valve, replacement is usually the safest solution.
Trying to save a worn-out component often ends up costing more in repeated labor and ongoing drivability issues. Sometimes the smartest repair isn't the cheapest one, it's the one that permanently solves the problem. The driving habit that makes the biggest difference.
Here's something many drivers never hear. The way you drive your vehicle has a direct impact on how quickly carbon forms. Engines that spend most of their lives making short trips rarely reach their optimal operating temperature. That means moisture remains inside the exhaust system, soot accumulates faster, sticky deposits harden over time. The EGR valve works harder under these conditions. Now compare that with a vehicle that regularly spends 20 or 30 minutes cruising on the highway. The engine reaches full operating temperature, combustion becomes more efficient, exhaust temperatures increase. Many soft carbon deposits burn away naturally before they become a serious restriction. This doesn't mean highway driving magically cleans the EGR valve, but it does slow down the buildup significantly. If your daily commute consists of short city trips, consider taking your vehicle on a longer highway drive every week or two. It may be one of the easiest ways to extend the life of your EGR system.
Small maintenance habits that prevent big repair bills. Professional mechanics know that reliability rarely comes from one major repair. It comes from dozens of small maintenance decisions. Using high-quality fuel from reputable stations, changing the air filter on schedule, replacing engine oil with the correct specification, fixing vacuum leaks before they become serious, keeping the PCV system functioning properly, addressing check engine lights instead of ignoring them for months, allowing the engine to fully warm up whenever possible. None of these tasks are expensive, but together they dramatically reduce carbon buildup throughout the intake and EGR system. The cleanest engines aren't always the newest ones. They're usually the ones that have been maintained consistently. One last thing most people never consider. Many drivers become obsessed with cleaning every component under the hood. Throttle body,
Mass airflow sensor, fuel injectors, EGR valve, again and again. But more maintenance doesn't always mean better maintenance. Every time a component is removed, there's a risk. Bolts can break. Electrical connectors can become damaged. Gaskets may no longer seal properly. Sensors can accidentally be contaminated. The goal isn't to clean everything as often as possible. The goal is to maintain the vehicle intelligently. Clean components when symptoms, inspections, or diagnostic data show they actually need attention. Avoid unnecessary repairs simply because someone online recommended them. Preventive maintenance should be based on evidence, not fear. Final thoughts. Your EGR valve is one of the hardest working emissions components on your engine. Most people never think about it until a warning light appears or the engine starts running poorly. But by then, the damage, or at least the carbon buildup, has already been developing for thousands of miles. The good news is that many EGR problems don't require expensive replacement. They require patience, proper diagnosis, the right cleaning products, and an understanding of what caused the buildup in the first place.
Remember these key principles. Never replace parts without confirming the diagnosis. Use cleaners designed specifically for EGR systems. Never use aggressive tools that can damage precision surfaces. Allow cleaning chemicals enough time to dissolve hardened carbon. Inspect the entire EGR system, not just the valve itself. Address the root cause instead of repeatedly treating the symptoms. And most importantly, develop driving and maintenance habits that prevent carbon from forming in the first place. Because the most affordable repair is always the one you never have to make. If you found this guide helpful, make sure to subscribe for more practical automotive tips that can save you money, extend the life of your engine, and help you avoid the costly mistakes that catch so many drivers off guard. Thanks for watching Drive Safely, and we'll see you in the next video.